Hello and welcome to this commentary for the Heart of Darkness. This is a absolute gem of a PlayStation 1 game, which I have quite fond memories of playing around my grandfather's as a wee young lad. Anyway, we're going to whack it straight onto hard difficulty. I'm going to do my best not to talk over any of the cinematics, so let's get started and I'll see you on the other side.
Perhaps even terrifying. Andy! Have you not enough again?
No, I was just
Sleeping in my class in broad daylight. Well, let's see if you're more alert in the dark. You can spend the rest of the hour in the cupboard.
You can't shut me up in there! I know my rights! My uncle's a lawyer!
And mine's a judge. Get in there. Oh, wow. Afraid of the dark? Come back here this minute, young man.
No way, Jose!
There's an eclipse of the sun today. There'll be a test about it tomorrow. I'm warning you.
Freedom! Yippee! Hey, whiskey! Cowboy! Wanna wear my hat again? There. Huh? Hey, come on, whiskey! Hurry up or we'll miss it! Hey everybody, look, the eclipse! Wow! Oh no. decorations. Apple, a camera, and don't forget the friskies. Ah, great. Wow, it works! Hang on, Whiskey, I'm coming. What the heck was that? Whoa! Whoa! No, no, no!
Andy, we have a problem here.
I know! Oh, no, shoot! Ah!
Andy, we have
Okay. Ugh. You're a big help, you know that?
So yeah, slightly dated by modern standards. It's not quite modern day Pixar, but considering this came out in 1998 and considering it had a really small team, you know, I think it deserves a little bit of kudos for that. You get a bit of a PowerPoint presentation going on, but you can't have everything. So we'll just meander on, and as we can see, this is a 2D side-scrolling platformer with pre-rendered backgrounds. A bit like Abe's Odyssey or Abe's Exodus if you played those sort of games there, and you see me horrendously struggle with a single enemy here. It's a weird thing, I find when there's a big horde of enemies, it's not too bad because you can just fire into the mass of them. But when it's one, you can't get that little bastard. But the way to deal with this, and the game very much does just throw you in the deep end here and just start shooting out tons of hordes of enemies, is to kind of exploit the fact that it's based on screens. I'm not sure that's the best way to explain it, but there's kind of like these screen transitions from area. It's not a linear progression. So what you want to do is just stick to the corner of the screen, and enemies usually can't come over until you start moving, just like that. Every now and then you might see one or two sort of like float up ahead and up above you, but for the most part they can't get there, whereas if you move forward and you're in the middle of the screen, you're having to turn left and right and try and shoot them, and you end up getting killed quite quickly. In fact, it's almost like the game was designed for you to do it this way. If you move even a few steps forward, you're going to have a real hard time getting ahead. And you want to try and duck down. There's a few kind of almost like lizard-like creatures, or shadow creatures. I'm not quite sure what they're actually called. I'm not even sure if it's mentioned too much. They're just shadows, and they'll kind of crawl on the floor, and so you want to get down there. Oh, and also ones that are looking down a little bit. These weird coyote-like things, you can't actually kill, so just keep jumping over them until you can make some progress with them. Make sure not to do a double jump a couple of places, otherwise you will get hit by them. And as you can see there, the second I start moving forward, you get in a real bad situation really quickly. So yeah, they throw a lot at you very early on. This is quite a hectic way to open up the game, and I guess it's to get people kind of, oh, look how exciting this 98 PlayStation game is, you know, get the kids playing and whatnot. And this is an annoying part. You'll come across what can you describe as thumper shadows that will keep hitting down on the ground, and it causes you to get stunned and move forward, and then you can't shoot a bit. Now, I'm not sure if the sounds from that particular section are like royalty free or if they just stolen, but you you can very clearly tell that that's the sound of the T-Rex and Velociraptors from Jurassic Park. I'm going to assume that they were in like some kind of royalty free music base. I didn't know of any lawsuits surrounding this game. I mean, it's relatively unknown. It's quite a niche kind of area, but I imagine it's just like out there in the same way if you play the Doom games, and I think there's quite a few kind of low budget sci-fi films that use the same kind of closing sliding metal doors. There's a quite nice use of like interactive storytelling as we go along, and also a few areas which I can only really call bullshit deaths. As soon as you get into that skull there, run and jump immediately, otherwise it crushes and kills you. And I'm not sure how on earth you're meant to know that. There's quite a few, I guess what you'd call bullshit deaths going forward. I mean, it's quite a short game. If you look at the length of this video, it's only an hour and a half, so I guess they had to try and do that to pad out the runtime a little bit. And it's nice that when you do die, that it's relatively quick to get back into it, so I can't really complain too much.
Can we at least use another wall, Master? Guess not. Oh, goody! You saved my life! Idiot! The Master waits! I'm getting too old for this. No, Master! Oh, Supreme Master of all doom, blackness and despair. Me, I'm but a miserable crawling worm in the presence of your royal darkness, but you know how much I enjoy slaving for you. I could say I'm a jerk and a bloodthirst, but I love being right here. Oh, Master, the money's not great, but I've managed to find you the perfect present, an offering to show you my undying devotion. A nice little gift from
Silence! Now what have you got in the sack? I hope for your sake it's the Earth Boy you promised me.
Bring me the sack, you idiot! I could do all by myself, really.
No more dumb signing here.
Oh, goody! Oh, this is going to be such fun.
Open it.
And here's...
Imbecile!
Please, Master, maybe it's the boy in disguise. Oh, no, not the wall again. No! Oh, makes a change.
Master, the boy's in your kingdom. Get him!
Yeah, this game has some really severe tonal whiplash. You'll notice a lot of time when you're actually in the game and actually playing through it, a lot of the environments and a lot of the enemies you come across are quite terrifying, actually, especially for a young kid at the time when I was playing this. In fact, if you get the opportunity, go on YouTube and like type in Heart of Darkness deaths, just like all the deaths you can suffer from, because there's some really brutal ones. I mean, even just some of the creatures in this swamp, they're absolutely horrifying. But then you go into the cutscenes and it's very tongue-in-cheek, very just cartoony, I guess is the best way of describing it. I mean, I know obviously this is I'm not sure if you'd call it pixel art, but I guess you would, wouldn't you? It's a very kind of old school pixel art, but there's a lot of atmosphere in the backgrounds and in the environments, and then when you go into the cutscenes, it's like Pixar's methed out cousin. It's very strange, and I get the impression that because there was such a small team, that the vision of the people making the cutscenes and the ones who then made the game, they must have been quite different, because it's like night and day often. I remember playing this as a kid. Like I'd skip through the cutscenes, like, oh my god, these are so bad. Like this, even as a kid, I thought, oh my god, I'm gonna watch Bugs Life or want something like that. And then you go into the game, and I actually had nightmares from like, there's these weird little MAGA enemies that can't later, and as they pull you in, they like break your neck, and then pull this kid in. It's like, Jesus Christ, what the fuck? It's so different, so different. Anyways, with our weapons disposed of, we need to sneak past these enlarged Venus flytrap looking things in a more puzzly section and get them to eat these engorged looking firefly type creatures. And we move on to our next cutscene. As we conveniently find ourselves dangling from some vines with something horrible lurking behind us, get moving left to right really quickly, otherwise you get eaten. And that's what I mean by some of the horror elements in the game. Like, that's not just like, you know, a silly little monster that a kid would think of. That's like a Leviathan-like thing. That thing's terrifying. And it absolutely terrified me as a kid. We move forward and work our way up our trees, where we'll finally encounter something in this area that's not trying to horrendously murder us.
Hello there. I'm Andy.
Andy!
Huh?
Surprise!
That was neat. Are you an acrobat?
Acrobat!
What's your name?
Amigo!
Amigo what?
Amigo, amigo!
Boy, what a scary place.
Dark Kingdom! Whoa! No go!
Look out! Look! No, no!
I'm unconvinced the comically enlarged anatomy really works in its favour, but here we are. As soon as we land, we want to start swimming straight down. There's a lot of fireballs that can come down, and if you get caught by them, you can get taken out. And this bit's actually quite tricky, because you need to come down here to grab the green, or touch the green rock before we can move on. And I distinctly remember quite a few times, especially when I was younger, you go down here and it's blocked, and you try to go up to get air and you get hit by fireballs and you just end up drowning. I remember as a kid getting stuck here quite a while, trying to figure out how to move this rock off the cavern, trying to figure out if there was like some button I had to press, and you have to just go to the left, which isn't tremendously well choreographed, but we finally have a weapon of some description. Now, the green power, or green energy, I'm not sure, I don't know a better way of describing it, unlike the lightning gun, has 2 attacks to it. So you can either quickly fire small ones to do damage, or you can charge up for a large one, which will be used for a lot of puzzle sections. There are seeds that you'll come across, and if you give them a quick little whack, if my aim doesn't suck, I have to dismount here to hit it, and they will grow up into a tree. So we still carry on in the kind of a puzzly section. It's not as action orientated as near the start of the game, but at least now we actually have some means of killing enemies and not just having to run away from them all the time. Although there's still a few that we can't take out, like these underwater plants. So it's now onto the underwater section, which is always the most loved section of every game ever. I mean, you only have to look at Zelda and just how beloved underwater sections are to and water temples in general to know that they should keep making them, keep putting them in the games. So when we come across these kind of larger underwater plants, I don't know how best to describe them. I start calling them suckies and blowies. That's going to get taken out of context real quickly. You want to look carefully for where the water's flowing. They can be sucking you in like that, and that was actually quite close. Or they can be blowing you away, and there's a few times we have to try and have a little look to see where about that takes you. I mean, these little plants here, the double ones, they're pretty standard. They just suck you in and kill you. Nothing really special about them. Now with these three, there's actually a very small section between each one of the three where there's no water being pulled in or out that you want to try and mingle through to get out. And it's pretty much just a case of just timing it. It's not too difficult yet. Later on it gets a little bit tenser, especially because Andy is not the fastest swimmer. Although, you know, he's what, a 10-year-old kid. He's not going to be an Olympian, is he? You know, he's doing the best he can. So for this section, yeah, keep swimming diagonally downwards, otherwise you'll get snapped up by the Venus flytrap. And this bit sucks. This bit really sucks. The hitboxes of Andy are around where his chest is. So if the spindle tentacles, however you want to describe them, catch his legs, it doesn't matter too much. If you're struggling a bit with that, just a little bit of trial and error just to try and figure out where the hitbox is. And this bit's not too fun either. You can't kill the Venus flytrap enemies, is what I'm going to refer to them as, but you can only stun them temporarily, so you have to move quickly and just pretty much just take a leap of faith. And we're just going to run away from these guys. Those worm enemies are the ones I was referring to earlier, where if they kill you, they pull you in. And there's this horrible, absolutely horrible animation of Andy like struggling as it snaps his neck. It's really out of place considering how comical the Amigos are. But a lot of times, if you come across those, just run past them. Like it saves so much time, and they can be quite tricky to take out. So just don't bother with them. Now, I remember I was playing through this with one of my cousins actually, and he kept trying to run past that Venus flytrap enemy. And if you run past quick enough and you do a jump, you can get over with him. But to save yourself the hassle and get through quickly, just crawl on the floor. Rather than trying to risk it, just go straight through. And this is one of the more anxiety-inducing sections. So you want to swim through here, and you have to dislodge this rock. And as it dislodges the rock, it causes a current to come through, which starts dragging you back. And although moving in, you saw me just quickly knock it through, you'll actually want to see where these piranha-like shadows are first. If they're close to your screen and you push it, you cannot make it back in time. So in that particular case, they were on the right side of the screen. That it didn't matter. But if you see them right next to you, don't push the boulder. It's not going to end well for our little ginger hero. Don't forget the little Venus guy as we come back, and also don't forget the guy down here. You can either give him a shoot. I think if you jump, you can kind of jump to the right. But we need the seed anyway, so you might as well take it out all in one go, otherwise you're just wasting time. It takes a little bit of time getting used to how long that they stay stunned for, and again, that just comes with practice more than anything. Now, the way the displacement works is a bit strange, because you just think that there's clearly enough space on that bit of rock there. They would just have two seeds on the platform, but it's a platforming game, so we need to have a little bit of suspension of disbelief. And now that we've unlocked the rock from earlier, it will force any seed that gets thrown into the water to flow to the right. So we put our seeds down, shoot them up, and we get going.
Hola! Amigos! Amigas!
Hey, are you crazy? Hey, amigo, help!
No worry, no flight. We know it me. We vegetarians.
Wow, that's for me. I'm starved. I could eat a horse.
No touch, no touch. Last food. Last food. Share horse.
Wait, I got a better idea. Look.
Horse tree, Andy, huh? Eat horse, eat horse.
And that's the whole story, guys. As you can see, I've got big problems. I mean, here I am, space strike in the middle of nowhere. I got whiskey in the hands of flying skeletons, and you guys are my only Darkland without being seen and somehow get whiskey.
Huh. Need speak now, head honcho. Oh, Grand Honcho. Oh, Grand Honcho. Talk to us now, your words of wisdom.
I know why you come. My vision eye sees all there is. Looky. I draw my vision, just like you, huh? You fly from sky to find amigo like this. Wow! Wow! You go to find dog, amigo. You must not leave. Great danger there. Great danger there. Here, I protect you with my great magic. Dark forces never come. If so, tic-tac-toe. Me voodoo magic. Look. Great Honcho says, evil bones never come here. I have spoken!
Get up, Andy! Get up! The evil bones attack village! Much bad here! You go! Run!
Look out! What?
Where? No worry! I come!
Now, permit me if you will, and may the Lord have mercy on me for bringing it up, but why was there the need to show Amigo boobies? It's one of those things where I'm not quite certain who the target demographic of this game is, because it is filled with juxtapositions. As I mentioned before, if you go and look at some of the death scenes for Andy, they are really quite gruesome. There's not a huge amount of blood. I imagine that would have given it a higher rating, but you know, being incinerated, snapping their necks, being ripped up and eaten, and again, there's not, well, you can't visibly see any blood. I'm not sure if there is or not, but it looks as if like his bones are being broken as he's being devoured and stuff. And then you get these Amigo characters that seem very out of place considering how dark a lot of the rest of the game is. You have, I mean, if you were to go back on that picture, and I'm not suggesting you do, but I've mentioned it now, so you're going to, because reverse psychology is a thing what exists. Like, it's not just boobies and, you know, the areola and everything. She has bush. Like, someone went through the effort of drawing that and thought, this game where our protagonist is a 10-year-old kid that has kind of a E.T.-esque adventure vibe to it. Yeah, let's put let's put some hairy alien muff in it. You know, don't get me wrong, like they're free to do that if that's what they want to do, and in fact it's one reason why I quite like the more smaller scale projects and games and books. Books always remember one person, but you get what I mean, kind of like the smaller scale ideas, because they tend to be a lot less filtered than you would get from a larger game where it has to go through multiple committees and everything has to be signed, like stamped and improved and go through, and you get like this really watered down piece of media. You get some really strange, really out there, like just esoteric pieces, and it's just like, if you want to do that, you're free to do that, but I have to question who was this game aimed at, because you have the village of Patricks, because let's face it, the Amigos are basically just Patrick Star with wings. You get like Pixar, if not in quality, at least, well, rather I should say not Pixar, but attempting to emulate kind of that Pixar look. Admittedly, back then with the technology they had, you do get a Pixar PowerPoint presentation, but there's an attempt there to, you know, really emulate that kind of cartoon. And then you get some really punishing platforming sections, really dark stuff. I mean, this game came out in '98, and I'd like to say that it was a case then, but to be honest, there's still people who believe it now. You know, the whole idea that games are only meant for children, which begs the question why they put some stuff in there that they did. But then again, I guess we could talk about the old Willy Wonka scene, and the chicken beheading. I mean, that was very, very clearly aimed at children. Not quite sure why that was put in, but it's, yeah, there's some there's some very strange design choices in this game. But anyway, to get back onto topic after that tangent, when we get to this section, the difficulty really ramps up, and I actually had to practice this quite a lot to get this footage. I mean, coming here, one thing they don't tell you is you can't fight these, which is what I tried to do. You're expected to know that you just need to keep climbing and keep climbing. If you try and fight these things, they'll kill you. So just keep going up, and we'll get to our next cutscene. Now, the next section we have coming up is what I would consider arguably the toughest part of the game. And a big reason for that is, as well as the fact that a lot of the jumps and a lot of the movement you have to do are very precise and you don't have a huge amount of room to move, the controls for this game are what I can only describe as being a little bit sticky. So sometimes when you're firing off these green balls like this, you're pretty much just spamming the attack button because you just want to be firing as quick as you can. And there's a bit of a, I believe the term is called input delay. I mean, look at me trying to pretend like I've done game theory at uni. Why the hell would you do game theory at uni? Sorry, I don't mean to shit on anyone who does. Obviously, I'm joking. The bad man didn't do me anything, but there's this input delay where if you're firing it rapidly, it will keep firing it, and there's a lot of times where you have to try and maneuver through these pillars of lava and through enemies trying to attack you, as well as dealing with this motherfucker, the most frustratingly annoying enemy in the game, who will drop these little balls of goo which will cause you to slip. And I actually hitting them seems to be almost random. Like, sometimes as soon as you fire them, they'll immediately dodge out of the way, and they'll seem to have like these invincibility frames so they get out of the way. And I'm not sure if there's like an algorithm on their movement where if you fire directly at them, there's a percentage chance that they'll move out of the way quick enough, or the percentage chance they won't. I'm not sure what's going on behind the scenes, but they are infuriating to fight. Absolutely horrendous. And that, coupled with this lava stuff, this area sucks. There's nothing else I can put about it. This area sucks. I hate it so much. It's nice that there's, you know, a bit of a change up. We've been to forest areas, been to underwater areas. I mean, one thing I can say about it is that it does have that, I guess, childlike adventure is not the right term, but the kind of adventure that you would expect from a kid's kind of piece of media. And when I say that, I'm thinking very specifically, I don't know if anyone remembers, there's a movie called Page Master, which had Macaulay Culkin, of all people, the little kid from Home Alone who voiced the character, and he's getting kind of picked on, and you know, he's a bookworm. He spends all his time in reading books and stuff, and he goes to the library, reads a bunch of books, and ends up going on this adventure with books, which sounds really bad when I put it like that. I admittedly I haven't seen it in many years, but I remember as a kid really liking it. Hopefully it's held up, and I get that same vibe of this, is that you get a lot of whiplash moving forward, and as well as the tonal whiplash between how dark the gameplay can be and how whimsical the cutscenes can be, but also the game itself. It seems as if every like 5 or 6 minutes there's interspersed with a cinematic. Admittedly, that's if you don't die, and I guarantee you if you play this game you will die. I'm not even going to admit how much practice it took me to get this footage, how much bloody time I put in this game. And here we go again, straight away. 3.5 minutes, new cutscene.
Oh, little darky, don't you like your new home? I'm so sorry.
So it's not just the fact that there's a lot of intersperse going on, but because you keep jumping from area to area, it allows you to go through quite an amazing amount of different environments as you go through the game, which is definitely to its credit. It definitely appeals to the childlike imagination that's going on behind the scenes of this game. Since I always got the impression that this is everything in the game is a metaphor for Andy overcoming the fear of the dark that he has, which we set up at the beginning, and all of these are just gameplay metaphors. Just always found it quite interesting, given the name Heart of Darkness. As a kid, obviously, I didn't know about I vaguely knew about the book, The Heart of Darkness, but I'd obviously never read it. I didn't know a huge amount about it. I obviously didn't have the intellectual capacity to understand more of the nuanced takes of The Heart of Darkness, but there's not really much similar in this game to that piece of media, despite sharing the name. And they must have been aware that they were sharing the same name, given that it's such a well-known and well-respected piece of literature in our time. And I can only imagine that it was either a case of, oh, Heart of Darkness is about children, we have a kid here, we will there's some similarities there. And I don't think that they thought that there's a similarity and as in they believed it, but more as in it would be like a good marketing gimmick maybe. Because unless there's a lot going on the surface that my smooth brain is just not comprehending, I don't get the impression that this game has a huge amount to say about wider society. It definitely comes across a lot more as just a relatively innocuous, relatively innocent, childlike adventure about overcoming one's demons, as opposed to like a whole heap of stuff that we can go into with the actual Heart of Darkness, which I'm not even going to touch up on because that's a rabbit hole I'm not going down right now.
Andy, help! Amigos need you! Look!
What's wrong?
We're tired! These magic broke! Help!
But I can't. I've got to find whiskey.
Andy, we cannot touch ground! We make shadow turn us bad! Malo!
Come on, amigo. Let's help.
No, Andy! Too late! Turn in!
Hey, are you okay? No! It's one of them! Oh, thanks, amigo! Hey! What's happening?
Now, as that cutscene finishes, we don't have any time to think. As soon as we get ahead, we want to jump to the right or we get absolutely pancaked. Now, I do wonder if the environments in this game were, if it was all kind of conceived as a linear narrative, or if they kind of just made levels, made puzzles, and they didn't quite know how it all fit together, and that's where we get the little cinematics from. Because there is, as I was saying, there's a huge amount of variety to, and I don't know why this seed. Sometimes when you kick it, it moves. Sometimes it doesn't. That's annoying. Yeah, there's a huge amount of variety to the environments, and it definitely becomes a bit simpler towards the end. You get a lot more continuity. But for the first half of the game, like, you spend 5 minutes in one section, then you spend 5 minutes in another, and you just go in and go in and go in. And I wonder if that's more a case of people were trying to design levels, and they were trying to see what worked and what was interesting for gameplay. And then they were like, well, shit, we got all these levels here. How on earth does any of this go together? And that's why we have these very bizarre cutscenes where sometimes they're only a few seconds long and they're just dragging them from one place to another because they're just trying to fit together this jigsaw puzzle of ideas. And to be fair, I think a lot of the games back then were kind of done with that idea in mind. That's why you had levels and you'd have different sections. It's like, okay, what can we do to make this particular area unique and interesting and stand out from the rest of the game? Like, it was more compartmentalized, I feel. I got no proof for that. That's just my feeling. Anyway, move this seed under here and give it a good old splash.
Bravo, Andy! Bravo!
As if to reiterate my point, we now have a wave defense style section where there's only 2 areas we can move to. There's an area to the right and there's this area left. There's only 2 panels, and just survive and kill all the enemies as we basically go into a battlefield. It it does seem like there was a lot of ideas put into what they want to show, and they were trying to find ways of putting that into a kind of cohesive gameplay idea. So there's evidence both ways. I got no idea. I'm just talking out loud. The best thing to do really is just to find a corner, hunker down, and kill them, and we're done pretty quickly.
We've got the power. Let's rattle some bones. After it, boys. Let's boogie. Sorry, guys. Watch it. Yeah, strike one. Good shot. Watch out. Okay, drop me down there. See, amigo? Those guys weren't so tough.
Me vamos, Andy. Help Amigos.
Okay, I'm going back to find whiskey.
So a lot of the backgrounds from this point onwards are relatively samey, and as in they have kind of a consistent idea flowing through them, which makes me think that when developing this game, these were the kind of levels that they developed at the start, and then somewhere along the process they got worried, oh my god, everything looks so much the same, you know, there's not enough variety. You know, you see a lot on games consoles back at the time showing all these different stages and different areas, and they were worried it might be a bit too samey. So maybe that's why they then just throw some ideas out, or maybe the ideas previously were from just some spitballing ideas that they had at the beginning for just concept arts, and that's why it all got thrown together. Because you'll notice for this last section of the game, I say last section, it's about 40 minutes, so it's about half of the game, there's not nearly as many cutscenes, there's not nearly as much to take you away from playing. So, as just my hypothesis, I have absolutely zero proof for it. I'm just throwing some ideas out here. Now, this chain bit, it is actually possible if you walk slowly to move across that, and you can just about kill the creatures below, but it's such a pain, and it's arguably more difficult that you're better off just jumping out, just getting it over with. Because if you make it across the other side of the chain, the position you're put in is not a favourable one, so you're literally making it harder for yourself, I would argue. Maybe a little bit quicker, not that I'm aware of, but we'll just move forward here. Now, as we come to this section, the variety of enemies definitely ramps up a little bit. I mean, we've seen like these weird wall crawlers, but we have the stronger juggernaut type creatures that are usually interspersed with the more numerous shadow creatures. I don't know what any of the correct names for these are. I remember there was a little book I had when I was a kid, and I want to say that there was like names of all the different creatures back then, but I obviously don't have that available, and I'm sure if you were to look it up, there would be some guides from like when you got stuck on games pre-2000, you would go and find like a fact sheet of just like a wall of text of multiple pages that you'd read through, that some dude has painstakingly gone through. That was the walkthroughs you had back then. You didn't have video, you didn't really have even pictures, you just had text. And it's funny actually, because a lot of these walkthroughs, because these games that I cover are so old, I end up using to familiarise myself with it. Because a lot of these games I played when I was a kid, but I was no expert at them. And coming back to them is the first time I understood a lot of the context, the first time I actually completed a lot of them. So I've had more than one friend point out the irony of using a walkthrough to create a walkthrough, but it's a different form of walkthrough. It's transformative media, as they say. Anyway, as we press on, we're going to come across these guys, who are the most annoying people to deal with. Now, saying the only, that's complete lie. That's false entirely. What are you saying, Crook here? You can kill them just by firing lots of smaller rounds at them, and eventually it will take them out. But the easiest way to do it is to get a supercharged one, the same one that we use to make the seeds grow, and whack them with one of those. The problem is, every time you do that, it splits them in two, which you then have to hit either with a lot of small green orbs or supercharged one, otherwise they grow back. And there is a lot of situations where, because there's other enemies in the way, or in the case we've just seen there when there's two of them, although I've been quite fortunate taking these guys out, because they're blocking the shots, you end up killing them and you just make more of them, and it starts to spiral out of control almost exponentially. It then gets quite difficult because they use a flaming attack which you have to jump, and then they do a flying flaming attack which you have to dodge. And when you've got about 6 of those coming at you, it's quite difficult. Now this section, easiest way, quickly do a double jump across it, and same here, rather than deal with the worms, I just jump straight down, just avoid the whole section. We're going to have to deal with it coming back up anyway, so we might as well make life just a little bit easier for ourselves if we can. Make sure you take this guy out before he sucker punches you, and as we come out, there will be a lot of these like crawling lurker-like shadows. And I don't know why, because you come across a few of them previously in the game and after this point as well, and they don't have the best reaction time, but if you try and drop down on those and you haven't taken them out, they will kill you immediately. For some strange reason, the ones here seem to be programmed to just snatch you straight away, so don't risk jumping down until they've all been taken out, and when more of them crawl out after you've got to that point, make sure you take them out. Moving back up, another... I would say it's more annoying than tricky, some of these sections, because you kind of just have to try, pick a corner, don't let them get too close to you. A lot of the time with the spider ones, unless you get a lucky shot at a distance, the only time you can guarantee to hit them is if they try to charge at you, as that one did just a second ago. And if they get on you, then they eat you straight away, which is also pleasant. And just, woof, just there was really close. Like if I had fired like half a second slower, he would have gobbled me up. And it's a bit frustrating. You have to just try and keep firing and slowly whittle them down. And be careful they don't snatch you as they pop up behind you. They're so tedious. They are very frustrating. Sometimes you can do just like that. You can try and lure them into a false sense of security. And as you're moving up, they can pop up quite quickly, which, as you see here, I'm moving quite slowly and methodically, like a little spot, then getting my weapon ready. Because when they ambush you, they will jump on you and snatch you very, very quickly. So keep an eye out for them. And moving back through the area was in... Oh, Jesus, that was close. Just try and, yeah, double jump it over. Make sure you don't hit the pressure pad on the bottom or you'll get squishified. But that's most of the section done, and we're moving on downwards. It's quite fortunate this game doesn't have full damage. Our little protagonist here has got strong bones. He's got strong 10-year-old bones. They don't snap as easily as if you were not prepubescent. And this section, I kind of consider as a little bit bullshit. Because when you come here, you would assume, oh, you can just go and kill the worms. But again, sometimes the AI seems to have been changed. And if you try moving across and attacking them, they will pop out and they will eat you before you have an opportunity to fire at them. Like, it's just programmed that you can't kill them quick enough. And so the way to take it out is to come down here, make a whole bunch of these armored knight type creatures, and then they eat them. And I'm not a big fan of that section because it's not really telegraphed all that well. You've been able to kill... Oh, that was close. You've been able to just shoot the spiders before, so why these ones are suddenly hiding is annoying. And this section right here, lots of jumping. Make sure you hold down that jump button, otherwise you'll just fall into the lava. And a choreographed cutscene that we cannot shake this one out of.
You'll see what real pain is when the master gets here.
And now time for the easiest breakout ever. So we just do a charged shot upwards, get the seed out, give that a good old whack, walk upwards and knock this very conveniently placed boulder. Is it so secure. So I mentioned before that the previous section was kind of bullshit with the lack of information given for you to figure it out. This next section takes the biscuit for that. So there are worms here, and they will eat you up, they'll gobble you up, they'll snap poor little Andy's tender neck and kill him. So the way you have to do it is to hit these guys, which will cause them to mount up. And then the worms will completely ignore you and go for the armored knights. Not sure why they would favour shadows wearing iron armour as opposed to succulent 10-year-old. Jesus Christ, I'm getting put on a list. Succulent child meat, but they do. I also don't understand how the shadows can make metal, but I think I'm looking way too detailed into what I'm assuming was meant to be a children's game. Yeah, succulent child, mate. Jesus Christ, why do I do this? So lure these guys out for some strange reason, and I've noticed this on every playthrough. The armored knight here is a lot more aggressive and a lot better at dodging your attacks. And unfortunately, I think we've killed him when he's off screen, which... Let's see if we can lure the eyed guy out. He seems to do a lot more dodging and attacks a lot more rapidly than previous ones, but... And yeah, he can dodge your bloody attacks. They should have given him, like, red armor or something to, you know, show that this guy is, like, stronger than the rest. I'm not the biggest fan of them just making certain characters act differently without any kind of visual cues. But yeah, you want to make sure you jump over that switch, otherwise it will knock it, and we go into our next cutscene.
Why do I always get these jobs? Master, look! The magic rock! Now I've got the power!
You have the power, do you? Well, not for long.
Just a joke.
So that's just a way for the game to let you know that you no longer have your green powers. How he managed to find the rock, not really brushed up on. There's a lot that's not really talked about in this, like how they know about Andy or Whiskey. There's a lot that's not touched up, but it gives us this another section similar to earlier where we have no weapons, where it's all puzzle based. But this one I find is a lot more hectic. It's like a very quick, just run away kind of. How would you describe it? Kind of like a horror element. Especially when you have that little lizard bastard chasing after you, because you have no way of defending yourself. So the way is to be quick, and when he comes near you, you want to do a double jump over him, and hopefully not get grabbed. But it does make this section quite intense. It reminds me, again, because 2D stylized backgrounds, a bit in Abe's Odyssey, there's a couple of sections in Scrabania and Paramonia Temple, which you have to just leg it screen from screen. And if you know what I'm referring to, go watch my videos, because those videos are good, and they also are quite handily on my channel. So jump over the second switch this time, the first one to open. Make sure you jump over the hole and fall down this one. No, we've been eated, but because it's a cutscene, we're totally fine. And for those who have been paying attention for the full hour, and to that I salute you, this is the same monster that ate our electric gun at the beginning, and that's how we get our gun back. At no point was it digested. I guess they don't have digestive systems. And this is how we enter the final section of the game. So we don't have our green powers now, we won't for the rest of the game. And it takes on... Well, I wouldn't say action. There is still a couple of puzzle sections left, but because you have your lightning gun, it's a lot happier to just throw hordes of these shadow creatures at you, because the lightning guns, or the Tesla gun, I believe the correct term is much better at dealing with them. So we enter a similar kind of, I wouldn't say run and gun, but awkwardly move and then fire for a few minutes section of the game, similar to the beginning, where we have to make sure we hit up, and we want to try and, again, left, right, try and abuse the different screens to protect our back so they don't come back at us. I do have to admit, considering the age of this game, and again, maybe it's a lot easier to program, but the way the Tesla gun moves, like, it's not a straight line, which adds a lot to the flair, and how they've managed to how am I trying to word this? How they've managed to code it in such a way that it keeps flickering. Again, I don't know how impressive that is, but for 98 with a small team, it impresses me. Maybe if I knew more about coding, it wouldn't be such a big deal. But yeah, these shadow knights, that's what I'm going to refer to them as, are actually kind of more difficult to deal with the lightning gun, because especially the further away you are, the more that lightning like oscillates and goes above and beyond the point. So trying to take them out at a distance can be quite tricky, but of course you'd rather not get too close to it. So it develops a catch-22 where you, like, when you're just lying down and you're shooting, it's like, come on, hit the bloody brains, or the mass, whatever it is, hit the goop, stop fucking missing. We'll ignore the rest of these guys here, hit that switch, and move onwards. So take out the flying guys up top first, since they're the only ones that can actually hit you. The armoured knight-like enemies only have horizontal attacks, although we do need to get down to destroy them. Fortunately, we managed to get one of the back brains, so there's only one here, which is not too difficult. You'll notice that they tend to go down a lot quicker with the Tesla gun. I don't know what like the DPS ratios are or hit points. I don't know if anyone's made some kind of spreadsheet for that. But the Tesla gun does more damage. That's all we need to know for our purposes. I'm not going to go that autistic into the details. This bit can be a bit tricky. You have to try and jump over those fires whilst not getting knackered by the flying assholes. And I do notice that if you have to jump over something, that's more of a threat than ducking something, because obviously if you're ducking you can still be shooting. If you're jumping then you're completely not immobilized but locked into the animation, as it were. So be sure to have keep an eye out for the lizards up top. They kind of camouflage in, and I guess that's the whole point. I mean, they are shadow monsters, aren't they? So they don't drop on you. Move forward, and let's go.
Okay, pal, you got a microsecond to get my dog before I blow your nose for good.
Wait, please! I don't know where your little doggy woggy is really. But listen, can we make a deal? I've got a plan that's beautiful, really. Look, we join the pieces of the meteor together. See that? And we throw it in the black hole, right down on him. And hey, it's a bye-bye pet brain.
Okay, but you stay here while I get the rest of the pieces.
And now we enter what is the bane of almost every gamer's existence: backtracking sections. And yeah, that's okay. That's a little unfair. Backtracking sections aren't always bad. They're just mostly bad. In this part, we have to go and collect the various sections of the rock, and there's a really annoying ladder there that you have to duck down to move to the left, and a lot of time Andy will start crawling down rather than moving onwards, which is very frustrating. And yeah, backtracking sections I don't think need to be bad if, when you're backtracking through an area of the game, things change or there's some new challenges. This part kind of half does it right. Every time you get a new stone, a bit more of this kind of cavernous area opens up, so there's a little bit more for you to explore. But bringing it back is just tedious, because you can't have more than one rock at a time, and you have to every single time move it all down, do the same things over and over, and just endlessly frustrating. And I can understand from a designer's perspective why you might want to do it. It's a way to kind of save space, like, because you're using the same area and over again, you're not having to create new areas, so you can get the maximum how would you term it, not most bang for your buck, although I suppose that works as well, like the maximum mileage out of the work you've put in. Which, if you're on a small budget, which from everything I know about this game, it was a very small team, it was quite a small game. Okay, fair enough, but it doesn't make it fun.
Now it's my turn.
I'm probably being too harsh. There is only, except that ladder, that ladder tilts me beyond belief. I'm probably being too harsh. There's only 3 rocks in this section you have to get, and it is a relatively short game. But it's just one of those aspects I find of older games. It's not just older games; modern games do it as well. That just words fail me. So moving on upwards here, this bit can be quite tricky. This little lizard guy will keep running back and forth, and you have to... He seems to kind of follow your movement, so you have to be very quick to move upwards, otherwise you get squished by the cylinder coming down. Nothing too hard, pretty easy to go through. And then a whole bunch of Shadow Knights, I don't know what the hell their name is. And you want to try and make and unnecessarily jump there. I was being a little bit cautious. You want to make sure when you come up, you move off the ladders, because the last thing you want to do is to see a fireball coming towards you, and instead of ducking, you just start mantling a ladder. That's going to get you killed. And they also seem to be a lot more aggressive. I find the further along in the game you get, and I don't know how the AI is programmed, but the further along in the game you get, the more aggressive they tend to be with their attacks. But also when there's a lot of other enemies, as we'll see shortly, you'll come across them amongst like hordes of just normal kind of shadow enemies. And they tend not to attack as much then, because otherwise it'd be a bit bullshit. But I don't know if that's just my mind thinking that that's the case, or whether that actually is the case. I don't know. And I don't, from scouring the internet trying to do a little bit of research, I don't know anyone else who knows either. It's just, maybe I'm just going mad, but that's what it feels like. So unfortunately, as we've just seen, not only can you shoot the stone with the lightning rod, which is, I find is a lot easier when you're trying to kick it along. Sometimes it will not move and you have to turn back. It's not a big deal, but it is tedious. And well, there's a few puzzle sections where you have to actually shoot them through, which I quite like actually. It's a good little, like, they already had the tools there, so to be able to implement that as it is, I'm quite fond of. Like here, you have to lie on the switch and shoot it across. Not sure why it can't just go down where you have to crawl down the ladder. From a logistics standpoint, don't really make much sense. Only really makes sense because you needed the gameplay, you know, but it is what it is. I'll just move this last piece along, and we've pretty much finished with this section, and we'll be entering into the crescendo, the final area, with quite a few cutscenes. Bless them. I'm sure they were very proud of them at the time. At the time, they're impressive, but not so much nowadays. Hasn't aged too well.
Be careful, it's the last piece. Could be. Well, now what? No. Yes, a bit's missing. There's always some tiny little bit missing. Nuts. What a banner. Oh, goody! There it is, on the bridge. We have to have it.
We have to have it. Absolutely no liberties taken from Schmieg or anything. This was completely unique design. If you're going to copy from anything, you might as well copy from the best. And let's be real, Lord of the Rings is pretty much the best you're going to get.
Morons! You have a microsecond to find my little doggy woggy. Well, where's your little doggy woggy gone now, huh? Where is he? It's all the money you'll save on dog food.
So moving into the last section of this game, they throw everything and the kitchen sink at you, which, you know, they should do. It's it can genuinely be quite tricky. Now, if you pay close attention on this screen, there's actually a kind of lizard one underneath you, which if you just drop down, it will kill you. So you want to do a quick little run up, move to the left, and then quickly jump down before he can grab you. No point trying to kill him. We start off with a few knights. There's some spikes or needles, or don't even know what the hell they were. They were from one of the cutscenes earlier, so nice little bit of continuity there. And I remember as a kid, every time I got to this bit, just kind of getting nervous because you can hear all of the monsters off screen. And it would get a little bit of trepidation coming up, because as a kid I could not beat this game. I only really had it when I used to get brought home from school, and I used to get brought home by my grandparents, and they had a PlayStation 1 at the time, and this was a game that my granddad was very, very into. My granddad's basically a giant kid. he always seems to buy games and get them about a generation behind. But it is sweet. It's sweet that he gets into them, and he gets like really enthusiastic for something. He's like, "Oh yeah, I killed this guy and I shoot this dude and got that one." And yeah, I don't think he ever grew up. I'm forever young at heart. But yeah, as a kid, couldn't do this. It was just too much being thrown at you, and I don't know why, because when I came back to do this, I mean, obviously more skilled now, but I thought it would be more difficult, and it is absolutely tricky. It took a few attempts to get it right, but I remember, I think, when he throws down the Heart of Darkness type demon in the background, when he throws down the fire, I could never, ever get the timings right. And it is a double one, so you have to be a bit more precise with it. And trying to, I think, having to keep firing whilst also paying attention to the fire going on, I just don't think I had enough map awareness when I was younger to be able to take everything that's going on. Because there's quite a lot going on screen at once. And it can be a wee bit overwhelming, because now you have to look out for him in the background throwing fire. We have to watch for the knights if they want to throw some fire, which thankfully they're not doing too much at the moment. And you also have to try and make sure you don't get grabbed by the shadow creatures, so that you don't then get fried because you're trying to shake them off. So just do as we've done earlier in the game. Stick to the left-hand side of the screen, just so they won't come behind you. As you can see, occasionally some of these creatures will actually jump over me, and they'll be on the left-hand side of the screen, and you can actually see the claws coming over, but because of where I'm stationed, they can't grab me. I'm not 100% certain how the AI works, but I think sometimes you can see them actually try and do like a grab move, which would kill you. Like, you can see the claws like just then swipe from off screen, but because they're not off screen, they're not allowed to. And I think that's what's happening, is that they come up on the other side of the screen, go to attack you, but because you're on the different screen, it doesn't count. So it's kind of a way of, I guess, exploiting the game a bit. I'm not sure if that's what they intended, or if that was just a limitation, but as at the start of the game, if you take a few steps forward and you have to go left, right, it would be tremendously more difficult. So just don't do that. And we've gotten through.
Hey, I've got it!
Oh, God.
Oh, sorry. No, don't. You'll kill us all.
Hasta la vista, bad breath!
Are you ready now to face the heart of darkness? What's the matter, Andy? Afraid of the dark?
We come to just one final little section before we finish the game, and this is really, really not much of a challenge. It is spooky, I'll give it that. It's very, very spooky. Your gun doesn't work anymore, so what you want to do is move, and you have actually whack them with your gun. And if they're a little bit away, don't even bother with them. But one thing you want to do immediately after you hit the more elongated one, so you got two that pop up, kind of like these weird like jellyfish type things with two horns. That's the first description I can think of. And then these more mouth-like ones. When you hit the mouths, it will shoot a hand upwards, so you want to jump out of the way, otherwise that crashes on top of you and you get engulfed in the dark. So just be quick with that. The jelly ones you don't have to worry about. Just keep moving around left from right, hitting these as we go along, and we'll be done with it. It's really, compared to what we've had to go to get here, it is not tricky at all.
supposed to be looking after him instead of playing up here by yourself. It's late. Come on, boys. Time for dinner.
Okay, Whiskey, let's eat.
Okay, boys, it's bedtime.
Oh, Mom.
Brush your teeth, wash behind your ears.
Yes,
Both of them. Good night, Angel. Sweet dreams.
Night, Mom. Afraid of the dark? Okay, boy? Night, Whiskey.
What's this? Junko! Hey, hola! Huh? Amigo face? Amigo face! Amigo face! Amigo face! Amigo face! Amigo face? Amigo face! Amigo face! Amigo face! Amigo face! Jump.
And that is the end of our game. Thank you very much for watching, if indeed you still are. Hopefully you had it on in the background, you weren't just glued to your screen for an hour and 23 minutes, otherwise I would have to question your sanity. But yeah, it's quite a good game. I mean, it's short, if you know what you're doing. I think with a lot of the games back then, the length, I should say, comes from the difficulty. They kind of expected you to fail quite frequently and have to re-go through an area. I do have quite fond memories of playing this as a child with my granddad, and we'd take it in turns. We couldn't get past the same section. Should try and do that at some point. My granddad's still kicking. He's quite a young granddad, so but he lives miles away now. He still sends me messages going, "Oh, I got this new game. I finally got a PS3. You know, I'm playing this," and I shooted him up. But it's a pretty good game. The tonal whiplash is a bit all over the place. Like it's very inconsistent with what it's going for, and I'm trying to remember the term for that, and I cannot remember. Remember, there was a very specific term that Yahtzee Crowshaw used when I was watching his Let's Drown Out on some of his smaller projects that he did, like 7 Days a Stranger and that. And the word, I've Googled it. I've literally Googled it. I paused and I spent 10 minutes trying to find this adjective, and I cannot think of it. Perhaps you can leave it in the comments if you know what on earth I'm talking about. The term for like a small project by like just 1 or 2 people, which is just weird and esoteric because it doesn't have a committee going to it. And yeah, it's a bit of a strange one, but like I said, it was a small team as they had back then. I mean, you only really get that with indie games now, which why I consider a lot of indie games to be better than mainstream games, but that's neither here nor there. Yeah, it's a pretty decent little gem. I'm glad I've finally beaten it because I could never do it when I was younger. The reward, the cutscenes aren't quite as impressive as when I was but a wee child, but that's okay, that's okay. I'm quite surprised actually they've put a little bit of work into these animations of his character at the back, although I have to imagine probably quite a lot of it was, how would you call, like concept art they've kind of just stuck in at the credits. And there is one little thing that this game leaves you off with, in which it will replay the final cutscene in red and blue 3D, because 3D glasses were all the rage at the time. So if you happen to have some available, you might be able to watch this final bit. It's a little bit strange, but yeah, that's it. Thank you very much for watching, and I will catch you on whenever I'm able to make my next video. Hopefully it won't be 6 months this time. I'm a really bad YouTuber. Yeah, bye-bye.
Hey, I've got it!
Oh, God.
Oh, sorry. No, don't. You'll kill us all.
Hasta la vista, bad breath!
Are you ready now to face the heart of darkness? What's the matter, Andy? Afraid of the dark?